Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the auditorium, Anggrek Campus, BINUS University. Today, 18th of March 2016, in the corporate seminar, New Game Corporate Strategy. The seminar is held in collaboration between Bina Nusantara and Six Capital. Thank you very much for your presence and participation. Okay, so without further ado, we will start our first seminar today, but first of all, let us listen together to the official welcoming remark that will be delivered by our CEO of Bina Nusantara, Bapak Bernard Gunawan.
Dear honorable guests, especially Mr. and Mrs. Patrick Tang, as the founder of the Six Capital, also Bapak Bambang Sulisto as the founder of Satmarindo Group, formerly as the Ketua Kadin Indonesia. Also Professor Gordon Hewitt, and also Mr. Paul Tang as the CEO of Six Capital. Also our Rector, Prof. Harjanto Prabowo, and speakers, BINUSian leaders, our industry partner, and also all our students, of course. Welcome. We extend all the gratitude of God Almighty for its God grace that we can all be here on this special occasion today. Please allow me, on behalf of Bina Nusantara Foundation, to welcome you to Indonesia. To all colleague delegates, please accept our gratitude for taking the time to come to BINUS University. Finally, please let me open the seminar and join me to welcome all our distinguished speakers. Thank you.
In the past 9 years, he has been the editor-in-chief of Globe Asia, Indonesia's premier English language business magazine, and the Jakarta Globe, the country's leading English language morning daily newspaper. In addition, he has also held past chairmanship of the Indonesia Foreign Correspondents Club. Soeb is the co-founder of Synthesis Communications and heads up to its strategy consulting and advocacy business. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome me. Please join me to welcome Mr. Soeb Kakda.
Thank you very much. That was quite a long introduction, but my introduction is going to be short, but I think very concise. Pak Bernard, Pak Suryo, Patrick, Mrs. Tang, Paul, and all of us here in this room, I think we are very, very fortunate to be in the presence of one of the most, what I call deepest and most insightful global thinkers around today. So to give us a global perspective on the challenges facing Indonesia and the corporate world in general, please join me in welcoming Professor Gordon Hewitt. Thank you.
And very great pleasure to have this opportunity to share some ideas with you this morning about the task of doing strategy, the most important set of issues any institution can do. Where are we going? Where are we starting from? And how do we get there? Especially in a world that's very dynamic, shifting by the moment, and it's very complex, where things happen that really surprise you, and even with the best forecasts in the world, you kind of say, why didn't we predict that? Who saw that kind of coming? How do you take this amazing country with, what, 250 million people? And all we've got today is our brains. That's why I love the students. And we reinvented 3 global industries. Who would have thought the global revolution, the way we recreate industries, would have come from this thing we call an emerging. We're all emerging economies. in Hewitt's definition, we're emerging at the same time in a new game world. That would be my hope for you. And today may spark a little thought that says, why can't you do it? There's no intellectual reason why Facebook started in California, not Jakarta. No reason. It's just brains. And we have to think big, really big, in terms of what our potential is. Don't think in Indonesia about your resources. Think about your resourcefulness. It's a very different commodity. And everyone will have a form of participation. By the way, would you like to hear my conclusion before I start? Would that be cool? Then it'll determine if you want to sit here for 1 hour while I get there, all right? So let me give you the conclusion up front. There are only 3 types of institution in today's world, whether they're companies, businesses, or whatever. Only 3 types. Number 1, those companies who make things happen. That's 1. Numero uno. Number 2, those companies who watch things happen. And number 3, those companies who wake up and say, I wonder what the heck happened. So all that Instagram gives you is a chance to participate. Would you agree? With Kodak, the picture was the end of the customer experience. With Instagram, it's the beginning. And you determine where you go with this stuff. There are no operating manuals, no things that say, here's what it can do. You, the people, are now the part of the revolution. You know my question, ladies and gentlemen? Why did Kodak not create Instagram internally? You study innovation? Who knew more about photography? Why did they not create Instagram? And the sad end to the story before we move on to exam 2 is this. In the same month, Zuckerberg buys Instagram, Kodak declares bankruptcy in America. 100 years of understanding chemical film production, and they go out of business. Welcome to the new game world. The right-hand side did it, and almost none of us were predicting it. Let me drill down to one of them. We're in Asia. I want to drill down to one company I know pretty well, because I've dealt with them. And they were one of Asia's preeminent global brands. It doesn't matter what country you came from, everyone was proud, especially in the post-war period. An Asian company could rise to this kind of fame. It's called Sony. Correct? Even if you've never bought, one test of a good brand is how do people who never buy from you describe you? Do you know them, the best brands are generics. You know what I mean by generics? You use the word and everyone knows the activity. Xerox was a generic brand. Am I right? Get me a Xerox. Xerox it. The new ones are who? The new global brands. Google has become one. Would you agree? Google it. FedEx has become one in logistics. Federal Express. You get this right, it really annoys competitors. Right up their nostrils. We were saying, the first thing employers want from you, my good friends, the students here, when you leave here, is the capacity to collaborate. Correct? They'll all tell you this. No one has a monopoly of knowledge in today's world. We need you to be able to share, to work, to learn, to leverage. Collaborative management is important. And if you're caught at collaboration in a university, we expel you. It's called cheating at an exam. Think about it. The individual is still the unit of analysis. What was your score on your own in the test? Very few universities grade people on their collaborative knowledge and how to exploit it. We need to get universities to think of this problem. Well, the answer, of course, is what? You've had time to Google. You know what Sony's worth today? Less than 50. 10 years of hard slog, efficiency, quality, closing factories. They're worth a fraction of what they used to be. That's the prize for playing the wrong game better. And you know what? They could be a takeover bid. It's hard to take over a Japanese company. Industry called personal computing, an industry called music, an industry called mobile phones, and the whole of movie visual animation, and it became one amorphous mess. Not because people forecast it, but Apple made it happen. They became what we call the real market leader, the nodal player, the one who sits at the center of the biggest game-changing force called convergence. In today's world, if you studied nothing else, convergence, things which were separate coming together, changes games, changes boundaries, changes definitions, and Apple, despite only having one starting point in PCs, becomes the nodal player of that game. Just a word. The last time I met him was a year before he died. He died of incurable pancreatic cancer. He was a soldier. He kept going for 6 years. The normal life expectancy of a male with his DNA with that disease is 18 months. He was still talking on the stage 6 years on, till his body couldn't take it anymore. He said to me that was the picture he was most proud of. It wasn't the picture, it was where it was displayed and what it said about him. And what it said was, on the front of the Fortune magazine, he'd just been elected by the world's business community as the best CEO of the last decade. That meant a lot to him. And the subtitle, I want to reproduce it, forgive me, it's a little bit scratchy now. It said, how he defied the downturn. If you ever wanted to annoy Steve Jobs, and he was easy to annoy, go in and say the market is mature. You know what I mean? He said, markets don't get mature, executive brains get mature. We failed to reinvent our industries. Changing games is not the same as forecasting them. And I think as we begin to think about the panel discussion in a few minutes' time, some thoughts to build on. Let me just go back one slide, can we? That's it. This is your takeaway chart. If you want to diagnose this stuff, this is the more serious bit. Then I think these are the symptoms of the new game world, and why so many traditional industry leaders, ladies and gentlemen, are finding this difficult. We used to live with defined industries. We've now just got converging spaces. We used to have a linear supply chain. We've now got an ecosystem of everyone collaborating at the same time. We used to think innovation was about new products. It's now about new experiences and business models. We used to have to handle uncertainty. Now it's ambiguity and complexity. What on earth is happening out there? Suppliers used to be smarter than customers. Now customers are smarter than suppliers. Changing whole industries who sell their information for money. We used to forecast markets. Now we can shape them. It's not your market share that matters. It's are you a nodal player? And most importantly, the theory of the firm in economics says the firm creates the value, the customer receives it. We now live in a world where customers co-create value. They are actually more in charge of value than most firms are. I believe Indonesia could be a revolutionary force in healthcare in the future. Healthcare. You have a chance to redefine this old-fashioned industry. And I put this together for one of my big clients in America. It's just like the Apple diagram, and it shows very different forces all coming together. The old industry, of course, are the pharmaceutical companies. They sell you pills to cure you. But your customer has to be cured. They said to me, Gordon, what's going to happen to the future of healthcare? I said, I have no clue. But the last thing you need is an outbreak of health. If the world ever gets healthy, you've got no business. You're there to cure the sick. But we're now finding the exploitation of the DNA code. And I'll be talking to them in 2 weeks' time. Run by a brilliant CEO called Anne Wojcicki, used to be married to Sergey Brin, founded Google. Has launched a business called 23andMe. Google them later. For $99 and a lick or a spit, they will give you your DNA code. And they'll group you with people who are like you. What causes the smartest people to get stuck in a time warp that sentences them to the past, not create the future? From Troy to Vietnam. each of them great civilizations, but taken out by false assumptions. And I found the answer in a concept called the dominant logic that I want to finish on. And dominant logic is an invisible force in the brain that programs how you think, what you see, what you don't see, that would cause BlackBerry to say, what does Google know? That would cause Kodak to say, who are these stupid kids from Instagram? And it defines what you see, how you translate it, what you do. It's the thing we never teach in business schools. Because we think if you want to change a business, you change the structure, you run a new culture program. We don't get into the genes of the brain. And it comes out in a number of ways because this thing called dominant logic, we can move one on, please. Programs 3 sets of assumptions. How you look at your industry, how you make money, how you run your organization. It becomes your DNA code and almost predicts what you will do. You know what a university is going to do. It's not surprising. We also are caught in our dominant logic. I'll finish with a couple of them. When you all go out into jobs, is to study the dominant logic of your institution and see if you can be a force for change. What I've been trying to talk about today in setting up our panel discussion, my good friends in the moment, is this. I think it's all about a mindset that's got really 4 components to it. I call it new game mindset. What you and I have been talking about is the need for us to think about new ways to analyze markets and competition. New ways to think of doing strategy, not just getting better, but reinventing the game. New ways to create iPods across the enterprise, and a way to re-examine our mental models, our cognitive acumen, and to escape from old patterns of thinking. It's not easy, but it's a great time to be alive. I wish I had more time left so I could go back and teach the stuff again. It's a wonderful time for you to enter the world to teach and to practice business, which is where I started. In concluding, could I wish you the one thing that's far more important than anything I've spoken about here for your success in life? The most important ingredient of strategy today. Could I wish you good luck? Luck's a thing we don't like to talk about. We like to think we're in control. But you need some luck. In fact, you need a dose of great fortune. There's an old Scottish proverb. Do you know what it says? Fortune favors the brave. This is time to build a brave Indonesia. And with your help, I hope you became a very famous and a very successful new game economy. Good luck, everyone. Thank you.
Now, before we go on to the panel, a good friend of mine, I think many of us know who he is, Mr. Sandy Agono, who has made a real effort to be here. I think Sandy represents both the past and the future of Indonesia in the sense that he has built himself into one of the most successful Indonesians that I know. I've been a good friend of his, I've enjoyed his friendship, and I thank him for making the time to come here and to share his views and maybe his insights on how Indonesia can move forward on new game thinking and maybe some of the challenges that the country faces. So Sandy, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Soeb, and thank you very much, Professor Gordon, for such a beautiful presentations. I have the toughest job to speak after Professor Gordon. It's almost like suicidal and a good way to embarrass myself. But Soeb asked me to transition the discussions from the new game concept into the Indonesian context and through innovation. So I have about 10 to 15 minutes. I'll be very quick. My first slide is going to talk about where Indonesia is at the moment. And if you look at Indonesia, 16th largest economy in the world, part of G20, you all know the numbers. But I'd like to put up one number that is very mind-boggling, is that 50% of our population is now urban, and it's going to go to 75%. So this is going to be a big challenge for Indonesia, and where innovations and the new game of thinking is going to be. Everything will center on urban areas. And it is now contributing about 74%. It is closer to 90% by the year of 2030. Next slides. Where are the opportunities in Indonesia? The opportunities is caused, of course, by the young demography. 50% of Indonesians are now at the around average age of 28 years of age. And I just add to that, about 3-4 years ago, I just had another baby. Few of my friends also are showing that Indonesia is going to be a young demography. Up to 2030, we will still have a bonus of demography, whereby we have a more productive workforce. In the middle income, if you can see, Indonesia is eclipsing Philippines, eclipsing Thailand. You see our middle class growth in 2012 to 2020 is about 174%. So with the rise in the middle income, you will see opportunities across consumer goods, consumer services, infrastructures. You see a lot of opportunities, and this is why Indonesia is so attractive at the moment. We see tech infrastructures and the internet penetrations are getting more. Indonesians are getting more and more connected and informed. Professor Gordon mentioned about Nokia. About 10 years ago, everybody is using Nokia. Even Nokia, when they launched that huge, the brick Nokia phone, they launched it in Indonesia. Then we move it to BlackBerry. BlackBerry likes Indonesia so much that they have a product called Jakarta. And they launched the product where? In Jakarta, where it caused a lot of commotion. Remember in Pacific Place? And now iPhone and Samsung are looking at Indonesia because we are more and more connected and informed. And this is where the opportunities will be. So just a digital snapshot. This is like a very staggering number. And even from you, looking at it from Michigan, Professor Gordon. 79 million active social media users. This is one of the largest, if not the largest, social media markets in the world. 67 on that's using it active. 88 million active internet users. And we have more mobile subscription than our populations. So you can see tremendous growth in the sectors, and by now you see basically the penetrations of the digital economy will be here and will stay in Indonesia as we evolve into the new worlds of digital economy. So Professor Gordon talked about the big names, the Sony, the Google, the Facebook, but we are also looking at disruptive technology in the grassroots economy. While I was at the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce with Pak Suryo, actually there is also a disruptive technology that you can use not only to change your lifestyles, but potentially driving the national economy forward. Because remember, 99% of our economy is micro, small, medium enterprises. 57 million units of micro, small, medium enterprises. You can talk about the big names, but much of Indonesia's backbone economy is where? At UMKM, at micro, small, medium level. So we need a disruptive technologies, and why I decided to be here today for 15 minutes rather than at the political party conventions that's happening now is to meet with you guys, to embrace the young generations in how to create a disruptive technology in the grassroots economy. So next slide. Transport. I was driving here using technology from Waze. I left DPP Gerindra in Ragunan. They say I will be here 48 minutes from where I left, which is about 9:08. And exactly 48.5 minutes I was here. And at the corner, I see green jackets of people wearing Gojek and Grab. So transport, Uber, Gojek, Grab have already become part of our life. This new economic sharing model is now part of our life. The government tried to find a cute thing. try to block Grab, Uber, and Gojek, what is the result? People revolting. They don't want these services to be blocked. So government needs to move faster in understanding the technology leap, in understanding how regulations can adapt to new technology. If the government act like how it acted in 1990s and the early 2000s, we're not going to be able to catch up with technology. So, job creations. I just spoke with Nadim Makarim. Government is trying to very hard, we at Kadin, Chamber of Commerce, to create jobs. He single-handedly, 18 months down the road, created 150 to 200 jobs. Amazing. 200,000 jobs. Next, e-commerce. You see, it's now 1.3 billion. But this will be 25 to 30 billion. Not in 5 years' time, in 3 years' time. People are moving. We have a trust gap to buy, my generations, they're older. Soeb is kind saying that I'm part of the past, but hopefully part of the future also. But I have a trust issue when I buy on the e-commerce. But my daughter, 18 years old, he doesn't have any problem. He buy it from everything online. So we see the value is going to go up, and names like Bukalapak, Elefania, Tokopedia, Zalora, Matahari Mall will dominate the market. Next. My good friend, Ahmad Zaki, he was right exactly like yourself in one of the sessions that I had near Universitas of Indonesia. He was inspired to be an entrepreneur. He knows his background is technology. He started Bukalapak 2011. By now, in 2016, 5 years down the road, he's able to create more market value than Saratoga has, a company that I created about 20 years ago. 500,000 UMKM is already using Bukalapak. And he's on the track to beat one of Indonesia's largest retail markets players. So if you look at how innovations, how job has been created, how economic models is growing, and how he inspired guys like Matahari, an old player, established player, to move into online space also, to move into digital economy. So not only Matahari, MAP, every single company now moving into the digital economy. Next. I'd like to also touch about the grassroots economy. Why, on this age, we're still having problems with the highest cost in terms of meats, in terms of chicken, in terms of red onions, in terms of chilies? Because we have not disrupted, the technology has not disrupted in terms of how business is being done, just like how Professor Gordon's saying about queuing, about hotels and so on and so forth. We still use middlemen. So I introduce you two names. First, Groceria. This group of friends from Surabaya is revolutionizing the way people shop in traditional market. We don't really have to go now down to the traditional market anymore. They will bring the products to you, much like the Gojek for traditional market. Watch this, guys. In 2 to 3 years' time, the evaluations will become in the billions. And with real impact. Ibu Irma, for instance, have in the past been able to create more businesses using Groceria. Next is 5 Kilo. Another thing, red onion. 80% of the price increase when it reached Jakarta. Why? There's tengkulak besar, tengkulak sedang, tengkulak kecil. There are 5 middlemen, 9 layers of distributions. These guys, 5 Kilo, said, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to buy from the farmer and I'm going to offer it directly to the buyers. So single-handedly, they cut the distribution chain and create a new way of doing business, a game changer like what Professor Gordon said. So 2 names will be the size of Gojek, Groceria and 5 Kilo. I guarantee you 2 years from now. So they started the pilot project with bawang farmers, and now they've been able to show how the red onions become more affordable and less fluctuative. I have 2 more minutes. Next slides. this is how innovations is going to be challenged in Indonesia. But I am sure with this rooms full of bright talents that we're going to be able to solve that shallow talent pool. Infrastructure is being built. Financing is getting more and more available. Myself with Ibu Shinta Bubu. Where are you, Ibu Shinta? Please stand up. She is working with me on creating an angel EQ network. So if you guys have any idea on new products, innovations, technology, call us. We'd like to fund you, and we'd like to grow your company to become the next Google, the next Facebook. Next. So how can private sectors do for national development? Create jobs, be an open access, and invest more. I think this is what our jobs is. And finally, I'd like to conclude that in 2030, picture yourself 14 years from now, BINUS will be top 10 universities in Asia. 7th largest economy in the world. Gojek will make it Fortune 100. These are all is going to happen in 2030. Some of you guys, 5 or 10 of you guys, will become the Indonesian's Forbes or Globe list. I guarantee you, when you start a business now, 12 years from now, you'll make the list if you are innovative. 75% it will be urban and 113 million of skilled workers. This will be the new Indonesia. This will be the new digital economy. This will make Indonesia a great nation. So with that, thank you very much, Professor Gordon. Thank you, Soeb, and good luck. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much. We will start with a panel discussion today. I think we have heard this morning about new game thinking, about how the world is changing very quickly. We need to move on from what Professor Gordon calls dominant thinking to a new level of thinking. So this panel will probably explore some of these areas of how we can move in that direction, and also what are some of the things that are already going on within this new game thinking that we can use as models for us to build on. So let's get into the conversation. I'm going to ask the panel a few questions, but we will have some time for Q&A from the audience. So I may have to limit it to maybe the maximum of 3 to 5. But so if you do have any questions, keep them ready, and we will take them later on.
I think Indonesia, should realize that there is a new landscape in business. The new game thinking, the new game mindset is something that is that we have to just acknowledge that it is there, and the message that the Professor Gordon gave basically is we just have to adopt to that. Unless, if you don't do that, then you're just left behind, then you cannot be competitive as a nation. So the new game thinking, the new game mindset should not just apply to corporations, but I think it should apply as well to country and to universities. Because this is something that I think unless you adopt this as the examples given by the professor, companies today, it's not just you have to do the right thing and doing things right, but more than that, I think you must know the new game thinking.
You have been dwelling in this new game environment and world, and I think you are also a gamer. I understand, a very avid and almost fanatic gamer. Tell us a little bit about what you are doing in this space.
The first is that I get to sit on the same panel with these esteemed people over here. And the second thing is that Shoaib has graciously allowed me to speak about something that's very close to my heart, which is the future of gaming. I see a lot of young people in the crowd. I like to say that because I don't feel like I'm very young anymore. But it's good to see a lot of young people in the crowd. And I'm not sure if many of you know, right now, the Games Development Conference, or rather known as GDC, is actually happening, and they are also talking about the future of gaming. But I find, after countless lectures from Professor Gordon himself, that they're all talking about it from a very old game perspective. And I think that's a very bold statement. So on these two counts, I find myself very lucky. So what we're going to talk about today is not the arms race of the gaming technology space. Today, we're going to talk about the future of gaming from a new game perspective, right? And through these examples, I think you can start to see how new game mindset starts to apply into certain industries and areas that you wouldn't naturally imagine for it to apply. If you ask me right now, sitting here, what is the future going to look like in gaming from a new game perspective, I can tell you I have no idea, right? But what I can tell you, right, are the three things that are going to start driving this. Now, the first one is redefining the gamer. This would have never happened 5 years ago. I would not be able to sit here facing all of you and say that I am a proud gamer. I would just sit here and say I am the co-founder and group CEO of Six Capital. But no, I am a proud gamer. Yes, I play Dota 2. Yes, I play Counter-Strike. No, I don't play League of Legends. Right? Now, that is something that could never happen 5 years ago. Why is that? There has been a change in the gaming industry. See, 5 years ago, when someone said, I am a gamer, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? You imagine this nerdy guy hiding in his living room, jamming away on his PlayStation 4 on some RPG game and gets glued to it forever. Gaming was for nerds, right? Girls not gonna dig that. They want to go out and play some football or something like that, right? But today, with the advancement in mobile technology, what have you seen? You have seen the proliferation of digital entertainment. We saw from Professor Gordon's lecture earlier, we talked about music, we talked about movies. We also talk about games. The mobile gaming industry today is a staggering $30 billion industry. The second driver for the future of gaming, value systems. Redefining value systems. How many of you love YouTube? Okay. How many of you have experienced this before? I get this a lot and I really hate it. You jump in, your friend told you about a video on YouTube, you jump in there, you click on the link, and then suddenly Carlsberg starts showing you this ad and you can't skip it. And you feel so annoyed, like I want to watch my video, the latest trailer of Deadpool coming out. And I can't watch it because Carlsberg wants to shove an ad in my face. Right? We all hate ads. Whatever you want to do, right? Be it play a web game, watch a video, use an app, or use a free app. Just when you're getting into the experience of it all, and then they slap an ad in your face, and then you're like, oh God, where is the cross button? How can I close it quickly? And then they start playing around with all these kind of things, like putting the little X button in the corner so it makes it really hard for you to tap. And if you just tap around it, you might jump into a link to something else. That's the old game world of serving ads in the gaming space. Why? Because a lot of these early mobile games, right, they adopt the strategies of pre-existing conventional apps. So, what does serving ads look like in the new game world? Now, I say this as a new game world, but it's actually already happening, right? The new game world moves very rapidly. In the new game world, it's about redesigning these value systems. See, what value do you see in the ad? Technically, the ad is supposed to tell you about something that you probably might not have already known, or reinforce an idea or a product that you've already seen before. It's supposed to be a good thing. It tells you stuff. Why is it that we hate it so much? It's because it's being shoved in our face. No one likes things shoved in our face, all right? The third one is my favorite. It's big data and convergence. Right? We've heard many stories of big data. Google is a massive player in big data. Other companies like IBM Watson are moving into big data. Everyone's moving into big data. It's like the new buzzword of 2015, which was last year. Right? But how does it apply in the gaming world? See, big data if not made sense of, is completely and utterly useless. You are just hoarding a lot of data. You're just showing off how much disk space you have. Big data is only useful if you can sense-make that data and turn it into insights, right? And then after that, it's what you do with those insights. I'll give you this example. In mobile gaming, there's this thing, and you can see how you can apply it to the different industries that you guys are more interested in. We call it the moments of vulnerability, right? This is very important, especially from a games development perspective. What's a moment of vulnerability? A moment of vulnerability is like this. Imagine you're playing your favorite RPG game now, okay? And you do your best to, configure, or as we gamers like to say, spec out your hero or whatever, right? And you do your best, but it's not perfect. That's all right. But you get to this boss fight and you get stuck there. You just can't beat this boss. You just keep getting stuck and you get slaughtered all the time. And you build up so much frustration, right? Now, at this point of frustration is your moment of vulnerability. If the game was able to tap into insights based on the amount of big data they collect, they would be able to identify that this is a moment of vulnerability for you. Now, then do what with that? Correct? At this point, they can serve up to you a precision promotional bundle. You know how a lot of mobile games, they like to do this thing? This month we're having this $19.99 bundle. You will get so many gems and so many items and so many that. And it goes right across the board. And just pray to dear Lord someone buys it. That's 1980s marketing, man. Right? Today it's all about precision. You have the luxury of big data. You have the luxury of high computing power. You are able to sense make at a rapid rate and generate so much insight. Why are we not using it? We believe that we could go one step further, that we could transcend the boundaries of the game world and the real world. Exploring ways to create markets in between in-game currencies and real-world currencies, right? Enabling players to legitimately earn as they play. As they create value in games, they can so transport that value outside the game and into the real world. That's something we're working on, right? And that's something that we learned from the games industry. So yeah, I hope you guys learn a fair bit, and always happy to share my thoughts with you guys. Thanks.
My question, I think you mentioned that ideas change, disruption happens every 5-10 years, and business models and most of the companies actually getting obsolete every 5-10 years as well. And the companies can be, because of obsolescence, then risk to transform to the new business model, the new adapt to the new disruptions. My question is specifically, your opinion, how the company should be structured. So when there's a disruption, the whole business model and the whole organization will not be obsolete. Should it be like we have a spin-off, or in your opinion, how the company should be structured so it doesn't hinder the innovation within the company? Thank you.
First of all, a philosophy. I detest the word disruption. Disruption is only disruptive if you are an incumbent, if you're protecting something like the old leaders. For most people, disruption is a great force for freedom. Reed Hastings, whom I know, and some of my American friends know him, he's the guy who invented Netflix. Ever heard of it? And he said the key is not to give customers what they want, is to give them something they never thought they could have. For most people, disruption is a great force to enable them to do things that they could not do before, which is very much the Six Capital philosophy, by the way, is to take the chains off people's lives. So I would say, my first answer would say, let's get away from the fact that disruption happens every 5-10. It doesn't happen in waves, it's a daily occurrence globally.
Excuse me, my name is Grosella. I want to ask Mr. Paul, regarding the Six Capital, you said that if there you said that people can start selling items in the game, but then it means that and then exchange the currency from the game into real world. But then you have to have a how do you you have to convert the currency from the in-game currency to the real world. That means you're making a new currency for each game then. Is that really possible?
See, if you look at the fundamentals of currencies now, this is the area that Six Capital specializes in. What you're talking about, or rather the word that you're looking for, was actually currency exchange, right? Traditionally in fiat currency, you have one currency, for example, the US dollar, switching out into an Indonesian rupiah, for example. To the end consumer, it seems like, I'm changing the money. Technically, you're not. Technically, you're selling the currency notes that you're giving to the money changer, and then you're buying from him something else at the price. So if you think about it from the in-game currencies to real-world currencies concept, it's pretty much the same, right? If there was someone who was willing to buy in-game currencies from you because of the value that you have co-created within the game, right? Willing to buy it from you and then give you fiat currency for it, then it can happen. Yes, there is a problem, and it's brilliant that you brought this up because since 2003, games have been trying to do this. Many games have been doing it. I'm sure there are many gamers out here, right? And all of us know what the gaming gray market is like, right? Give you a very quick example. Look at China 2 years ago, before Blizzard made a massive crackdown on World of Warcraft. What was happening? Gold farming houses. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with gold farming houses. It was a very simple concept. I, as a World of Warcraft player, didn't have time to go and farm so much gold. So what do? I call my friendly neighborhood Chinaman. Says, hi, I need 10,000 pieces of gold. I'll pay you $10 for it. He comes around running in the game and then gives me 10,000 gold. The key to your question, right? The key to activating this economy is, in fact, the game economy engine. It's how you design the game economy. If you can create within the game mechanics design in a manner whereby the value you co-create within the game has external value and you can create a flow for that market, then yes, you can in fact create an economy whereby in-game currencies can be converted into real-world currencies. I hope that answers your question. Thank you very much.
I think on that note, I'd like to thank my panelists again. Please join me in thanking Paul, Pasurio, and Professor Gordon for a wonderful, insightful, and I think excellent, stimulating discussion this morning.